Discover the sinister truth. 7 haunted heads of fallen hunters whisper dark secrets. To me, Jess's heart raced as she stepped into the shadows of Hollow Creek, a nameless fear clawing at her insides. Was it the peeling wallpaper that smelled of mildew, or the heavy silence that blanketed the town? She glanced at Mia, her 7-year-old daughter, clutching her drawing pad like a lifeline. In a town where whispers wound tighter than the fog around the pines, Jess couldn't shake the feeling that all eyes were on them. Hollow Creek felt like a living thing, its tenebrous woods teeming with secrets. The very ground beneath Jess's feet seemed to pulse with a memory of her childhood, echoes of laughter now twisted into hushed tales of dreaded rituals, and the local hunters who vanished into the forest, never to return. Her father's cabin, the only refuge Jess could afford, was a relic of that lost innocence, burdened with the shadow of the man who abandoned her and the dark legacy he left behind. The town ambled by at a snail's pace, each dewy porch swing creaking as if bearing witness to some unspeakable crime. Neighbors wore friendly, yet hollow smiles, their eyes glinting with something Jess couldn't place. "Welcome back," they'd chirp with an unsettling cheerfulness. Yet Jess felt the weight of their gazes, 1,000 whispers lurking just under the surface. As night descended, Jess tried to shake off the nagging feeling of unease. They were safe here, right? But the walls creaked and moaned as if telling tales Jess had no interest in hearing. Mia was asleep when the voices came, low murmurs seeping through the crevices. Jess jolted, every nerve ending waking up to a paralyzing fear. It was just the wind, she told herself. Only wind. The next night brought an even chillier awakening. Mia erupted into terrified screams, her small body trembling beneath the thin blanket. Jess rushed to her side, her heart drumming in her ears. "Mommy, they're calling me," Mia whimpered, eyes wide and glistening. "They want me to come outside." "Who?" Jess's voice cracked, the air thickening with dread. But Mia only curled into a ball, haunted, lost in some unseen world. The very next day, while trying to coax some color back into their lives, Jess discovered a stack of Mia's drawings, each one darker than the last. They showed hulking figures, faceless but for their hollow, terror-stricken eyes, crowned with twisted antlers like some grotesque crown. The uneasy sense of familiarity grew within Jess, the memory of her childhood chill creeping back. "Mia, who are these?" "I don't know," Mommy Mia whispered, her small voice trembling, "but they don't like us." Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, the whispers grew louder, intertwining into a song of sorrow that coiled around Jess's throat. Shadows danced in the corners of her eyes, mocking her with unseen fingers. Panic surged within her as the truth awakened, a truth tied to the very folks who welcomed them with open arms. Were they all complicit in the legends that stalked the woods? Were their smiles a cover for something monstrous? Time disintegrated under the heaviness of dread. Each whisper, each drawing felt like a countdown what awaited them in the haunted depths of Hollow Creek. Jess's resolve hardened. She had to uncover the dark truths the town hoarded like a cruel secret before Mia became the next name whispered among the shadows. When the darkness came for them, would they run, or would they face it together? The very air turned heavy as Jess reached the precipice of fear, her child's safety crushed beneath the buried secrets of the fallen hunters. Would she discover the courage to fight against the nightmare enveloping them, or would she succumb to the ominous call of the forest? A shrill cry woke Jess from a restless sleep, an echoing scream that pierced through the cabin walls. She shot upright, her heart hammering. "Mia!" She scrambled to her daughter's side, finding the girl tangled in her blanket, eyes wide with terror. "Mommy!" she gasped, breathless. "The whispers. They're so loud." Jess gripped her daughter's shoulder tightly, her stomach knotting. "What are they saying, sweetie?" They want me to draw them." Mia's voice trembled, and tears streamed down her cheeks. "They don't want to be alone." Panic gripped Jess. She remembered the drawings scattered across the kitchen table, the predators Mia had sketched haunting her every waking thought. No, honey, you won't. We don't. We don't need to listen to them. But Mia shook her head, determination flickering through her fear. They're waiting, Mommy. They see you too. With an icy twist in her gut, Jess felt the oppressive weight of unseen eyes pressing against the cabin's walls. The air thickened, heavy with warnings of things lurking just beyond sight. We need to leave, Mia. Now. They fumbled for clothes in the dim light. Jess's heart raced as the house creaked, each sound amplifying her dread. The whispers surged again, creeping through the cracks as she tried to block them out. Just get dressed. Just get dressed. She chanted it like a mantra. Mia's eyes wandered toward the window. Mommy, they're waiting outside. Jess dared a glance, her breath hitching. The dark shapes loomed beyond the trees, tall and twisted, like ancient sentinels watching them. Silhouettes edged with a faint glow, their antlers reaching toward the stars, scraping at the heavens. No. Jess whipped Mia around, forcing her to meet her gaze. We're not going outside, do you hear me? But Mia's wide eyes didn't hold the fear Jess expected. Instead, they sparkled with something else, a terrible connection. They're trying to protect me. They want to show me. No. Jess screamed, panic rising. She snatched the drawing pad, flipping through its pages. Each dark figure, each hollow-eyed monster seemed to flicker with life. These aren't friends, Mia. This isn't safe. Mia reached for the pad, her small fingers trembling with intensity. But they have secrets. Secrets about Grandpa. Jess felt the ground shift beneath her. Grandpa? She didn't want to think of him now, the man who left her behind, the distorted memories. Was he tied to this twisted folklore? Was this town really built on his sins? Just stay close to me, Jess whispered, her voice barely breaking above the relentless whispers. But the moment of calm shattered. The front door creaked open, swinging wide as if inviting them into the darkness. Jess stumbled back, clutching Mia, horror pooling in her gut. Outside, the forest seemed to sway and breathe, shadows curling into grotesque shapes, beckoning. They're coming, Mommy, they're coming for us. Mia's voice quaked, and Jess looked down, desperate. Run. Without a thought, they dashed for the back door, the bitter chill of the night air crashing over them. But the moment Jess stepped outside, the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. The trees shuddered, roots clawing at the ground as the ground came alive, the very heart of Hollow Creek beating with an ancient malice. Running through the yard, the fog twisted around them, thick and suffocating. A pair of eyes glinted in the darkness, piercing through the mist. They were close, too close. Mommy, they're here. Just as Jess turned back, a massive shadow leapt from the tree-line. The hissing whispers melded into a chorus of malevolent laughter, enveloping her as she felt the grip of icy fingers stretching from the darkness. Don't let them take me, Mia screamed, her small hand slipping from Jess's grasp. No. The world exploded into chaos as Jess lunged forward, heart racing. But the shadows around her twisted and warped. The forest wasn't just alive. It hungered. As screams echoed in the fog. As the terrible laughter mingled with the whispers, Jess realized in that moment, they weren't just threatening them. They wanted their secrets revealed. Or else, would they uncover the hidden truth, or be consumed by the woods? Jess felt dread claw at her throat, rushing against time. She had to find a way to break the spell that wrapped around Hollow Creek before her daughter slipped away from her grasp forever. And in the heart of the forest, amidst the twisted laughter, the haunted heads awaited, thrumming with dark secrets. What would happen if they surrendered? What if Mia chose to listen? They broke out of the cabin and into the night, but the forest seemed to swallow them whole. Jess clutched Mia's hand, dragging her forward, desperate to escape the flickering shadows that lurked in the gloom. Each cracked twig underfoot felt like a countdown, a reminder of how little time they had left. The whispers surged around them, piercing and anxious, as if the woods themselves were closing in. Mommy, I can see them, Mia gasped, her innocence shining through the fear. They're everywhere. Jess glanced over her shoulder. The dark figures began to manifest in the fog, stretching out like gnarled tree branches. Their glowing eyes bore into her, heavy with longing and rage. They wanted something she didn't understand. Mia, we have to keep moving, Jess shouted, panic lacing her voice. They darted between the trees, branches snagging at their clothes like hands trying to pull them back. But there was no way Jess would let that happen. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them as something massive emerged from the shadows. A creature towering over the trees stepped forward, its form obscured by darkness. It had a face that twisted and morphed. One moment, it was familiar. The next, it was a nightmarish parody of the people Jess once knew. "Mia," Jess cried, pulling her closer, but the child stood still, mesmerized, mouth agape. "Don't look at it. Run. I can hear them," Mia whispered, as if entranced. "They're telling me about Grandpa, the things he did." "No." Jess shook her head, feeling cold dread seep through her. "You focus on me. We can't listen to them." An icy wind swept through the trees, pulling at Jess's hair and filling the air with the scent of rot. She could sense their presence everywhere, an army of lost souls clamoring for attention, demanding to be recognized. The anguish in their whispers was palpable. What had been done here? What blood stained these woods? "Mommy, please," Mia begged, a mix of fear and fascination etched on her small face. "I want to know the truth." "Truth? This isn't truth, Mia. It's a trap." Jess's voice was frantic, desperation clawing at her sanity. She felt the pull to listen, to learn, to delve into the darkness like a moth to flame, but she fought against it. The forest itself seemed to twist around them, alive and hungry as they neared the edge of the woods. A blinding light broke through the darkness, the faint glow of the town beyond. Just a few more steps, and they would escape this wretched place. But just as Jess surged forward, a chorus of screams erupted, activating every nerve in her body. The heads began to appear, manifesting through the thick fog, horrific visages frozen in anguish, their mouths moving in a twisted dance of silent screams. "Mia, run. Now!" Jess screamed, heart pounding as she shoved her daughter ahead of her. She felt the weight of the shadows behind her, inching closer by the second. But Mia hesitated, torn between the darkness and the safe whisper of her mother. "Wait, they're showing me. No, they'll take you." Jess lunged forward, desperate as she felt the ground shift beneath them again. It was alive, humming with a sinister energy. Suddenly, a figure lunged from behind a tree, tall and twisted with grotesque limbs. Jess's heart stopped. "Grab my hand." The grotesque creature roared, the sound echoing through the forest, drowning out the whispers, drowning out everything. Mia stumbled back, her small hand reaching for Jess, but caught in a web of shadowy tendrils creeping forth, pulling her toward the darkness. The forest demanded sacrifice. Jess could feel it, the pulse of 1,000 angry souls crying out for retribution. "Mommy!" Mia's scream cracked through Jess's heart. "No, not again." With all her strength, Jess surged forward, launching toward her daughter as if propelled by sheer will. Just as she grasped Mia's hand, the night exploded into chaos. Light erupted around them, blinding and fractured. Jess felt the pull of the woods fighting against her, the whispers clawing for her secrets in a terrifying maelstrom. In that moment, she knew they were far from safe. The truth was a knife, and it was about to cut deeply. "Let us go." Jess swung them around, racing toward the shimmering light ahead. But the darkness roared with rage behind them, fighting to reclaim what was rightfully its own, each whisper now a scream, an unholy commotion echoing through the trees. Would they reach the light? Or would the forest drag them back into its ancient depths, forever lost to the shadows? As they raced forward, Jess felt Mia's grip slipping, and in that moment, she understood the depths of the horror they faced. What waited in the heart of Hollow Creek was a truth that threatened to obliterate everything they believed in. One wrong step, one whispered lie, and they could be standing in the very darkness they were trying to escape. What if the forest knew? And what if it wanted them to stay? Muffled shouts rose in pitch behind them, drowning Jess in a cacophony of panic. She pulled fiercely, feeling sweat bead on her forehead, the forest a wet, breathing entity pushing against their every step. Shadows flickered, reaching for her as she sprinted towards the fading light. "Mia, hold on," Jess shouted, her voice barely louder than the snarls echoing in the darkness. Time blurred. Every second felt stretched, a taut string about to snap. Mia's grip felt like it was slipping away, small fingers dissolving in Jess's desperate hold. "Mommy!" Mia's voice, small yet fierce, cut through the din. It spurred Jess on, each shout bringing them closer to the thin glow ahead. But another roar rolled through the woods, a low rumble that twisted Jess's insides and chilled her blood. "Don't look back," she commanded, urging her daughter forward. Yet a glance over her shoulder sent ice spiraling down her spine. The figures had grown, creeping ever closer, their illuminated eyes burning with unforgiving hunger. "Mommy, I can see them," Mia cried again, her voice laced with terror. "I see them, the sad faces. They wanted to tell me things." "No. What you hear isn't real. Keep moving," Jess screamed, ripping her focus away from the horror unfolding just feet behind them. A thick branch snagged at her coat, viciously tugging at her like it had a mind of its own. For a moment, she stumbled, jerked back, fighting against the forest's brutish insistence. "Mia." Jess felt a surge of power course through her veins, an instinctual drive to protect. "Run, please." With every ounce of strength, she yanked herself free, but the dark figures loomed closer, their shapes becoming more distinct features like twisted mirrors revealing horrifying glimpses of loved ones, their faces frozen in agony. Suddenly, they broke into a small clearing, a gasp escaping Jess's lips as the light seemed to shimmer with life. But the clearing was wrong. Shadows writhed, twisting around each other in a sickly dance. Unseen forces pulsated through the air, electrifying and terrifying, becoming a thick, overwhelming fog that blanketed everything. "We're almost there," Jess urged, pulling Mia harder, but the forest seemed to sense their resolve. Trees creaked unnaturally, their limbs stretching toward them, eager to snatch away the last remnants of their hope. "Mommy, look." Mia pointed. Jess turned her head just in time to see countless eyes blink rapidly from the trees, hundreds of them, glowing and demanding. The earth trembled underfoot, a throbbing pulse they could feel in their very bones. Then, a scream broke through Mia's scream, or so Jess thought. The world around her warped, becoming fluid and twisted. Voices echoed, rising in deafening waves, drowning out everything she held dear. They screamed her father's name. They pleaded with her in languages she couldn't understand, and the forest shuddered, embedding eerie whispers into the eerie silence that followed. "Mia, fight it. I'm right here." Jess could barely form the words as the shadows thickened, beckoning Mia, a torrent of lost souls surging toward them. A figure emerged, skeletal and twisted, its mouth moving, but the whispers came not from it, but from every shadow cast across the clearing. "Make the sacrifice," it croaked, the words barbed and venomous. "No," Jess shouted, positioning herself before Mia. "You want to take her." The night shifted, swirling in dark shadows, fraying the edges of Jess's sanity. Her throat felt raw, her heart racing in tandem with the forest's malevolent pulse. Out of the darkness, a bright flash flickered from within the trees, a vision of hope or a cruel trick. "Mia," she yelled again, but the shadows wrapped tighter around them, coarse and heavy. Whatever was in the heart of that forest wanted them, wanted Mia. And then Mia's voice cut through the chaos once more. "Mommy, I can see them. They're showing me everything." The ground trembled louder now, and the glow ahead began to fade. Jess could feel the darkness close in, wanting to smother them both in its sheets of despair. The glimmers of light were dying, snuffed out by the growing tide of angry whispers. Desperation surged through Jess. She had to get Mia out before it was too late. But what if the light was a facade? What if the truth of Hollow Creek was something even worse? They had not yet found the world beyond the grasp of the forest. And what awaited them might be the scariest part yet. The earth convulsed beneath them, each thud resonating with an ominous echo as the shadows writhed closer. Jess squeezed Mia's hand tighter, her heart hammering a frantic beat. "We can't stop. Keep going." A gnarled tree loomed ahead, its roots twisting grotesquely like pale fingers reaching out from the earth. Puffs of fog curled around the trunk, whispering secrets from mouths that had long been silenced. Jess couldn't fight the instinct to look back. It was a mistake. The figures had transformed, merging into the void. Faces twisted in sorrow, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mommy." Mia's voice trembled. "They're crying. They're sad, don't listen to them." Jess shouted, but the word echoed uselessly into the chaos. The trees shuddered, leaves rustling like bones. Every sound felt like a sinister warning. They ripped through the clearing, driven by instinct, fueled by fear, but dread clawed at her insides. What was this place? What had Hollow Creek become? Suddenly, Jess stumbled, and Mia yanked hard on her arm. Jess's foot caught on something roots? Or fingers? Darkened hands clawed at her, not letting go. Panic surged, engulfing her. She could feel cold breath on her neck, could feel the weight of the forest spirits drowning her in their despair. Mia, she gasped. Run. Just run. Mommy. Mia's small voice split through the haze. Mommy, I don't want to leave you. But the ground felt alive now, heaving beneath their feet. A sudden voice rose above the chorus of whispers. It's your fault. You left us. You didn't listen. Mia, we have to go? Jess pulled hard, and finally, they broke free from the roots only to be met by a thick fog rolling in, dense and suffocating. It wrapped around them, heavy. She could barely see Mia's face only an arm's length away. The air tasted of rot and sorrow, clawing at her lungs. Then, with deafening suddenness, the whispers stopped. An unnatural silence enveloped them. Jess's heart raced, waiting for the next surge of darkness to swallow them whole. Instead, a single spotlight illuminated a small cabin in the clearing. Mommy, there's light, Mia exclaimed, pointing. It flickered like a dying candle, its warmth struggling against the chills seeping through Jess's bones. Could it be safety? Or ruin? We have to go now, Jess urged, gripping Mia's hand as they dashed toward the light. The cabin loomed larger as they approached, its door creaking open, darkness spilling out like ink. Inside, an eerie stillness greeted them. Dust motes danced in the half-light, revealing disheveled furniture, as if the cabin had been abandoned mid-use. A shudder rolled down Jess's spine. Something about this place felt wrong. Mia, stay close, Jess whispered, her voice trembling. They stepped inside, the door creaking shut behind them like a closing lid on a coffin. The room seemed to swallow their whispers whole, and a sudden chill swept through, sending Jess's skin crawling. Mommy, where are we? I don't know. Panic clawed at her thoughts. But we can't stay here. We need to find a way out. A low growl echoed from the shadows, rattling the walls. A grotesque figure loomed in the corner, eyes glowing ominously. Leave or join us, it rasped, its voice straining against the silence of the cabin. Jess recoiled, dragging Mia with her as they stumbled back. The shadows around them rippled like disturbed water. Mommy, Mia cried, clinging to her. The air vibrated with energy, the walls vibrating as if alive, begging for the unredeemed. Sacrifice, the figure crooned, a predator displaying its fangs. Jess felt her stomach drop. What did this creature want? The shadows swirled, gathering, becoming faces she recognized, lost, twisted versions of those she had known. Their mouths moved in sync, forming harsh, urgent words. Help us. A sickening clarity dawned upon Jess. They weren't just trapped, they were prey, and she had no idea who the real monsters were. Mommy. Mia's grip tightened as the shadows twisted around them, a labyrinth of horror beckoning them deeper. Both their hopes hung by a thread. Could they escape, or would they become just another tale echoing through Hollow Creek? And if they stayed, what truths would the forest reveal next? Jess's heart thudded like a drum, the fear swallowing her reason. We need to find a way out, Mia, she repeated, inching backward, the weight of the shadows pressing in on them. The grotesque figure still loomed in the corner, its glowing eyes tracking their every move. She fought the urge to scream, forcing her thoughts to calm. Where do we go? Mia whispered, her voice small and trembling against the growl of the creature. Anywhere but here. Jess's eyes darted around the cramped cabin, desperate for a window, an escape. Dust swirled, illuminated by the flickering light, revealing more shadows dancing along the walls like mocking specters. Mommy, they're all around us. Mia's voice cracked. Jess felt the air tighten like a vice, pressing heavier around her. We have to move. She pulled Mia beside her, pushing forward, but every step felt like wading through thick mud. The dark figures writhed just beyond the edge of the flickering light, faces straining against the boundaries of their prison. Leave or join us, the grotesque figure repeated, its laugh scraping against Jess's sanity like nails on a chalkboard. Stop, Jess shouted, her voice slicing through the stillness. "We're not here to hurt you." Her words stood like a fragile bridge over a chasm of despair. The shadows paused, stilled by her defiance. A flicker of desperation came into her chest. Could these lost souls truly understand? Mia whimpered, holding her tighter. What do they want? Jess didn't know. But the twisted faces flickered into familiar shapes: friends, neighbors, those who had vanished long ago. They want help. They want us to free them, she breathed, her throat dry. But how? With each second that passed, the shadows edged closer, as if they were sensing her uncertainty. The air crackled, the energy in the room spiking with the weight of their collective anguish. "Mia, stay here. I have to. Don't leave me." Panic surged through Mia's voice, echoing Jess's own terror. "I want tea. I promise." Jess stared down the long, pitch-black corridor that stretched beyond the cabin, a mouth leading into darkness. "We need to gather our courage. If we stick together, maybe." Before she could finish, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into near-total darkness. "Mia?" Jess gasped, reaching out blindly. The little girl's hand was warm, but it was slipping away. A scream boiled up in Jess's throat. "Hold on tight." A gnarled laugh erupted from the darkness, wrapping around them like barbed wire. The voice slithered, "You don't belong here, mother. No one leaves Hollow Creek." Jess yanked Mia back toward her, the grip tightening until she could feel Mia's pulse racing. "We're not leaving without a fight." In that moment, Jess felt a surge of resolve. She pivoted, bold and fierce, scanning the shadows. "If you want us, come and get us." The walls of the cabin lurched, creaking like ancient bones. The shadows convulsed, angry whispers swirling like a tempest. "You'll pay for your insolence." "What's that?" Jess whispered, breath hitching as she noticed the shadow pushing forward, a jagged blur of anger and grief. It stretched toward them, fingers clawing, yearning for flesh. "I want to let you take my daughter," Jess shouted, shoving Mia behind her. The cry reverberated, resonating against the walls, igniting something deep within her. "We need to go now?" Jess forced herself, darting toward the door, her heart a frantic rhythm. Mia followed, her small feet barely keeping pace. But as Jess turned the knob, the door rattled violently, refusing to budge. The whispers swelled around them, drowning out all rational thought. Join us, Mommy." Panic spread like wildfire in Mia's eyes. With an adrenaline-fueled force, Jess pressed against the door, pushing, screaming. "Get out of our way." The walls trembled, groaning under the collective weight of their malevolence. The shadows howled in collective rage, rising up, blurring the very fabric of the cabin. The very air shimmered as if something was about to tear through. And just as the darkness surged forward to consume them, the door cracked open, spilling icy air and blinding light into the room. "Mia, run." Jess yanked her daughter free. But as they burst into the dawn of a new day, the forest's eyes bore into them from the distance. Hollow Creek loomed behind, pulsating with secrets. Did they escape? Or had they merely unlocked a door far worse than any cabin could hold? The closing of that door echoed ominously as Jessie spun around, only to catch a glimpse of faces, desperate and sorrowful, watching them from the shadows, waiting, always waiting. What new horrors awaited them beyond the threshold of light? And who would be lost next? Jess stumbled into the light, the sudden brightness piercing her eyes like needles. She shielded them with trembling hands, trying to adjust to the reality outside. Mia clung to her side, her small body shivering in the sudden chill of the morning air. "Are we safe?" Mia's voice barely broke the silence, a thin thread of hope stitched into her words. Jess took a shaky breath, glancing back at the cabin. Hollow Creek's presence weighed heavily on her, pressing down like a thick fog. "I don't know." A low growl drifted from the cabin, rattling her bones. The laughter of the shadows still echoed in her mind, singeing her thoughts. "We have to keep moving," she urged, tugging Mia as they stumbled away from the door, their footsteps crunching on the fallen leaves. The woods were eerily still, awash with the eerie glow of dawn, shadows stretching longer than they should. The trees pressed close, their gnarly branches twisted together like skeletal fingers, grasping for the sunlight. Every rustle whispered reminders of what they had just escaped. "Mama, do you think they're—" Mia's voice trailed off, her wide eyes searching Jess's face for answers. "They're gone. They have to be," Jess replied, the words sounding like a fragile promise. But fear clawed at her gut, gnawing at her certainty. How could she be sure? The thought made every hair on her body stand on end. Suddenly, a sharp snap echoed through the forest, halting Jess in her tracks. She stiffened, gripping Mia's arm tighter. "Did you hear that?" Mia nodded, her eyes round with terror. Jess's heart raced as she strained to listen. The wind hardly moved, but somewhere in the depths of the forest, a low, rhythmic thumping reverberated, a distant drumming that made her pulse quicken. "Mia, we need to move faster." Jess tugged her daughter along, her instincts screaming that they were far from safe. But the forest had its own pulse, one that resonated with the heartbeat of Hollow Creek. As they pressed deeper into the woods, the thumping grew louder, intertwining with soft whispers slithering through the trees. "Join us," echoing through the branches, chilling her to the bone. "Mommy, please," Mia whimpered, drawing up closer to Jess. "We will get out of this," Jess insisted, though doubt began to creep in. At that moment, a face peeked out from behind a tree, pale and gaunt, just a glimpse, but enough to plunge Jess's heart into icy water. It was one of the lost souls, eyes wide with desperation, mouth moving in silent screams. Jess faltered, momentarily struck by the hopelessness etched in the figure's face. "Don't look, Mia." Jess forced herself to keep moving, but fear gripped her throat. What if they weren't truly safe? What if the darkness had merely let them go to lure them back? "Mama, I'm scared," Mia cried, her voice trembling. "Me too, baby. But we can't stop," Jess urged, forcing her legs to keep moving, pushing back the panic that threatened to unleash itself. She stumbled over roots and rocks, weaving between trunks as if they could shield her from the truth. But the thumping continued, relentless and pulsating, growing ever closer. The whispering shadows grew louder, filling her ears with a malevolent chant. Join us, join us." Suddenly, a figure detached itself from the trees, stepping into their path with a menacing slowness. It was the grotesque face from the cabin, the glow of its eyes a beacon of malevolence. "Did you think you could leave?" it hissed, voice like shattered glass. In that moment, Jess felt the world close in on her. Shadows shimmered around the creature, coalescing into forms that surged forward. "No," Jess screamed, stepping back protectively with Mia pressed against her. "Mama, help!" Mia cried, panic lacing through her voice. They were surrounded. Shadows lurked in the periphery, desperate faces clawing to break free from the grasp of the trees. Jess's mind raced. She looked for a way out, but every escape seemed blocked, every shadow a reminder of what waited at Hollow Creek. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. "Mia, run!" Jess shouted, pushing her daughter forward. In the chaos, as Mia darted past her, Jess glanced back at the swarm. Were those the faces of the lost? Or were they the monsters? She would never know if she waited too long. Just as she turned to follow Mia, the ground beneath her feet gave way, and she fell into blackness, screaming her daughter's name as arms reached up to claim her. What awaited Jess in the darkness? And would she find her daughter before the shadows could pull them both into the abyss? Jess's scream echoed in the void, swallowed by the inky darkness that enveloped her. She felt weightless, arms outstretched as if they might break free from the pressure that bore down on her. Panic coursed through her veins, surging with every beat of her heart. "Mia," she cried, her voice desperate and raw. The silence that answered her was deafening, thick enough to choke on. She twisted in midair, futilely grasping for anything solid, praying for a grip. Time lost all meaning as she plummeted, fear morphing into uncertainty. Then, suddenly, she landed hard on damp earth, a jarring impact that sent shockwaves through her bones. Jess pushed herself up, gasping, her breath coming fast and shallow. The darkness was less dense here, but still suffocating, looming shadows darting just beyond her eyesight. "Mia." Her voice trembled as she called again, listening intently for a response. The chilling stillness lingered, her every nerve on edge, rattled by the oppressive stillness that had taken hold. A rustle came from her left. Jess spun, heart racing. "Mia?" The sound grew closer, dragging itself through the thick underbrush with a rhythmic certainty that pulled at her dread. There it was again, a laugh, hushed and mocking, echoing through the shadows. Her feet shifted uneasily, inching backward instinctively as the guttural noise seeped into her core. "I'm coming for you, Jess," the voice sang sweetly from the darkness, unsettling yet familiar. "No," Jess shouted defiantly, shaking her head as if she could ward it off. It was a sickly sweet tone, like honey laced with poison. The echoes of that laughter twisted in her mind, shifting and distorting. She wanted to deny it, but deep down, she recognized that voice. "Mia," she screamed again, louder this time, determination and fear merging into a desperate plea. "If you dare to seek her, you must first face the truth," the voice taunted, growing nearer until shadows shifted and the figure emerged, a ghastly apparition donning the semblance of a woman, skin stretched tight over protruding bones, her eyes glinting with malevolence. Jess stumbled back, her breath hitching at the sight. "Who are you?" she gasped, backing away from the creature that seemed to ebb closer. "You know me, Jess," it uttered, a cruel grin creeping across its face. "I was one of the ones who got away, but not before Hollow Creek took its toll." It stepped forward, invading Jess's personal space, the stench of decay hanging in the air. "We were once hunters, but now we are simply lost." "No." Jess shook her head. "Get away from me." Her fists clenched at her sides, the adrenaline giving her a rush of strength. But the figure only laughed, a horrifying cacophony that summoned shadows around her, swirling violently. "You think you can escape? You must understand, Jess, we are all connected. We were pulled into the darkness, just as you are." She turned to flee, pushing through the thick tendrils of shadow that clung to her clothes, as if they were alive and feeding off her fear. Every step felt heavier, like the shadows were trying to drag her back down. "Mama." Jess froze, her heart leaping at her daughter's voice slicing through the horror. "Mia." She surged toward the sound but was stopped by a wall of darkness, a solid barrier that pulsed with a life of its own. "Only the truth can free you," the creature hissed, its laughter echoing through the night. Shadows molded around Jess, whispered as if they were echoing the sorrows of the lost. "Mia." She screamed again, fighting against the darkness that threatened to consume her. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Where are you?" "Join us," came the whisper from every direction, swirling together into a sinister chorus. Join us, Jess gritted her teeth, summoning every ounce of strength. "I won't let you take her." She propelled herself forward in defiance, scrambling against the grip of the darkness. But with each step, more shadows lunged at her, brushing against her skin like icy fingers, wreaking havoc on her resolve. "Mama." Mia's voice pierces through again, just beyond what Jess could see. The sound seeped into her very bones, igniting the last flicker of hope. The tension crackled around her. Time stretched and twisted until all that mattered was reaching her daughter. Just a little further, Jess whispered to herself, breathless, until a warm light flickered in the distance. But as she pushed through the dark, could it be real? Or merely another deception from the shadows? And would she reach Mia before it was too late? The warmth of the light drew Jess forward, a beacon in the dismal chaos surrounding her. She stumbled toward it, blinded momentarily by the glow that danced like fireflies. Each flicker promised hope, yet the shadows fought back fiercely, snarling and biting at her heels. "Mama." Mia's voice again. It twisted Jess's stomach with fear and longing. She pressed harder against the darkness, her fingers stretching toward the light, aching for a connection with her daughter. Just a little closer, she panted, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. But with every stride, the shadows coiled tighter, pulling her down, whispering promises of despair that wormed into her ears. "Join us," they echoed, a sinister symphony drowning out her thoughts. "You're one of us now." Jess squeezed her eyes shut, fighting against that shroud of despair. "No, I'm not," she shouted, determination surging through her. She tore her gaze back to the light, pushing herself to run again. Each step felt like wading through thick sludge, but she couldn't stop. She wouldn't as she reached the source of the light. She stumbled into a clearing, where the shadows pulled away like a tide receding in fear. The air within was different, charged, alive. It thrummed in her veins. "Mia." The word burst from her lips like a desperate plea. Before her stood a circle of grotesque figures, hunched and twisted, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Each bore a haunting resemblance to hunters from a bygone era, their faces marred by pain and loss. "Welcome back," they whispered in unison, their voices a chilling echo of her worst nightmares. Jess gasped, fear curling in her stomach as she recognized them. You're the ones who never returned." The realization crashed into her, heavy and suffocating. One stepped forward, the figure's eyes locking onto hers. "Yes, Jess. We were once like you, hunters seeking thrills, adventure. But Hollow Creek has a way of claiming all it desires." The words dripped with an understanding that cut deep, laced with loss and betrayal. "Where's Mia?" Jess interjected, her voice frantic. "What have you done to her?" "Your daughter is safe for now," the figure hissed, a sly grin splitting its face. "But she cannot exist in the light while you remain tethered to the past. You must confront your truth." "No, I want to play your games," Jess cried out, but seeds of doubt began to burrow into her mind. "Truth is a cruel mistress," another whispered, its voice a rasping wind. "To find her, you must let go of what binds you to this world." The ground trembled beneath her feet, chasms opening like gaping mouths, threatening to swallow the light whole. Panic surged, her breaths coming in sharp gasps. "I won tea," but the figures encircled her, closing in, their eyes boring into her soul. "One truth, Jess. Just one. Who do you blame? The darkness or yourself?" Jess staggered back, the shadows lurking at the edges of the clearing creeping closer, hungry to reclaim her. The ground beneath her began to crack and shift, swirling like a cyclone as desperation clawed at her throat. "Tell us, Jess. What will you sacrifice to save her?" The hunters' voices rose to a chilling crescendo, shattering her resolve. Sweat trickled down her back as the shadows whispered promises of safety, their fingers reaching for her like gnarled hands. "Mama." Mia's voice echoed from the depths of the darkness, that haunting melody spiraling around her, mingling with the cries of the lost. A choice loomed before her face, her fears, or succumb to the darkness tightening around her like a noose. "Will you sacrifice the past to save your future?" A voice echoed, hanging thick in the air. Jess hesitated, heart racing, torn between two worlds. As the shadows lunged forward, the light flickered ominously. "Make your decision," the words rang out, heavy with consequence. But how much would Jess pay to bring Mia back? And would the truth be worth it, or merely another path leading to despair? Jess's heart thundered in her chest, a drumbeat resonating with fear and desperation. The shadows closed in, a chilling reminder of what she could lose. She barely heard the words swirling around her, the promises of safety, the taunting scrutiny of the figures that once was her kin. "Mama." Mia's voice echoed, piercing through the thick darkness enveloping her. Panic surged within Jess, every instinct screamed for her to act. She could feel the weight of the past dragging down her soul. Questions ripped through her mind. How could she confront the darkness that had stolen her childhood? What sacrifices were worth the cost of losing her daughter? "Enough," Jess roared, her voice rising above the whispers that sought to drown her. "I refuse to let my past dictate my future." The words cracked like thunder, resonating with a strength she didn't know she possessed. With each utterance, clarity washed over her, fueling her resolve. She wouldn't allow the pain of her history to chain her to Hollow Creek. The grotesque figures surrounding her halted, their eyes wide in surprise. They shifted, narrowing the distance. Yet something in her declaration made them hesitant. Jess seized the moment. "Mia," she cried again, voice strong and unwavering. "I'll do anything to bring you back. I will fight for you, even if that means facing this darkness." Suddenly, the air crackled with energy, the shadows recoiling from Jess's fierce determination. The figures shifted, their forms losing solidity, flickering like flames. "Then swear your truth," they demanded, their voices laced with urgency and anguish. "I blame myself," Jess shouted, voice echoing through the clearing. "For thinking I could escape, for thinking I could forget. I abandoned the past, but I will not abandon Mia." As the words tumbled from her lips, the shadows trembled, seemingly uncertain of how to respond. The grotesque figures morphed in front of her, a kaleidoscope of regret and sorrow. Jess felt a sinister pulse in the air, a vibration resonating with her admission. The earth shook beneath her feet, straining at the seams. "Mama." Mia's voice, laced with urgency, broke through again. Jess felt a tug on her heart, a visceral connection threading through the darkness. No longer paralyzed by her history, Jess stepped forward, even as the ground quaked and the figures writhed. I will forgive myself. I will forgive Grandpa. She took a deep breath, the truth unfurling inside her. I won't let guilt dictate my love. In that instant, the figures surged, a cacophonous wave of sound exploding around her. A vortex formed, shadows swirling and battling against the light that began to break through the canopy overhead. Jess spread her arms wide, accepting the weight of both grief and hope. Show me, she cried out, show me everything. Suddenly, memories flashed through her mind, bright and vivid. Laughter echoed faintly her father, young and full of life, drawing her in close. But grief intertwined with joy, regret twisted with clarity, and every moment bled into the next, a mosaic of love mingled with pain. Each significant memory pulsed, forcing shadows to retreat, the fog turning lighter and lighter. Mama! Mia's voice rang through the din, like a lifeline beckoning her forward. Jess pushed through the blinding flashes, relentless in her pursuit. Hold on, Mia. I'm coming. She could see her daughter now, glowing against the encroaching darkness, radiant and warm. With a final surge of defiance, Jess dove into the light, arms outstretched, leaving everything that weighed her down behind. As she collided with warmth, everything fell silent. She gasped as the light enveloped her completely, the shadows dissolving into a soft glow. Slowly, the brightness faded, revealing Mia right in front of her, safe and whole. Tears streamed down Jess's face. Disbelief flooded her senses as she fell to her knees. Mama! Mia threw herself into Jess's arms, their hearts colliding with a love stronger than any darkness. Jess held her tight, relief washing over her in waves. I've got you, sweetheart. I promise I'll never let you go again. Behind them, the figures shimmered, remnants of the past fading into nothing. Thank you, they whispered in unison, their voices echoing like distant sighs. As they dissolved into nothingness, Jess felt the forest shift, a final breath released, the quiet return of calm settling over the hollow. They emerged from the trees, the once foreboding hollow creek, now a place that bore scars but could now heal. Jess looked back at the clearing, the remnants of the darkness giving way to dawn. Together, they forged a path forward, fear and love intertwining. Their hearts forged anew by the truth they had dared to confront. Let us go home, Jess whispered, squeezing Mia's hand tightly as they ventured back into the light, together. And as they stepped into the sun, Jess knew one thing without doubt. The truth could hurt, but it could also set them free. Please, if you found this story compelling, you need to subscribe now and not miss out on even more exclusive content in the future. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let the world know how much you enjoyed this wild ride. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section below with your thoughts and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.